Hello, beautiful people.
Ta-da.
What's going on?
We made it.
We made it. We're Side After Dark. Welcome back to Music Maniacs with Side After Dark. Ooh, we got a good topic today.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not going to tell you yet. Stick around. So basically, if y'all don't know, we're a band out of Brooklyn, New York. We love music. And we love talking about music. So that is why we started this podcast. So, how do we even introduce this band? This is one of the biggest bands in the history of bands.
Of music, of all time.
100%. Of American bands.
An American band. Not their song.
Worldwide bands. Literally any description of a musical act that you want to use can be applied to this band. Unless the description you want to use is that they're bad.
Yeah.
Because they're not.
Exactly. They're
great.
known for soaring above the charts.
Yes. They left their wings bring them high above wherever they thought that they were going to go with their lives.
The bird's eye view of the people and how we feel.
They like to take it easy.
They have really peaceful, easy feelings.
They like to stay at hotels, sometimes in California.
One of these nights, they'll stay in one of those hotels.
If you haven't figured out who we're talking about yet, we are talking about not the Eagles, but
Eagles.
All right, so again, Eagles, not the Eagles. I've made that mistake many times, but Glenn Frey,
Yes.
one of the founding members of the band, has made it very clear that they are Eagles.
Yes.
All right, and we'll talk more about that as we go on.
Yeah, about why are they Eagles? Why did they name themselves?
I can't tell you why.
I can't.
So let's go back to Detroit, Michigan.
All right, we'll go back.
Some might say that the very origin of this band was when a young man named Glenn Frey
Yeah.
was with another young man named Bob Seger,
Yes.
and they were partaking in some marijuana-based activities. And Glenn's mom caught them
Yeah.
and forbid Glenn from starting a band with Bob.
With Bob Seger. Glenn had been playing piano since he was 5 up until he was 12. And then he was like, nah, I'm getting older. And I like girls. And girls kind of don't really like the piano thing. So he starts getting into more different types of music. Gone to see the Beatles, just like everybody else. And, of course, was totally inspired. And then in the music circuit, he meets Bob Seger, who's only 2 years older than him. But is kind of like a big influence to him. And then Bob goes, Glenn, you got to write your own songs if you want to get out of Detroit. So Glenn wants to get out of Detroit.
Yes. So long story short, he couldn't join a band with Bob because his mom didn't want him to.
Oh, no. She said, hold up. My kid's not turning into no junkie on the road.
So that began a chain of events that led to him, Glenn, moving to Los Angeles to start a band.
Right.
And get into music.
Yeah. He started playing with 2 different bands, and then he played with a band called The Mushrooms, which you got to put the picture up of The Mushrooms because it's a really good picture.
Okay, I'll see if I can find it.
It's pretty dope. And then he was not with The Mushrooms, and then The Four of Us, a band called The Four of Us, were more like the California sound, and Glenn was from Detroit where it's very cold and very murky, and he wanted to get out to California. So he went with The Four of Us, that band, out to California. Yeah, and nothing really happened for that band there, but Glenn knew that he found his new home.
So he was out there for a while, and he eventually became a backing musician for a young lady named Linda Ronstadt.
You may have heard of her.
And there was another person that was playing with Linda.
Yeah, by the name of Don Henley.
Yes.
Yeah, Don
himself.
The Don himself, who is from Texas. Shout out to Texas. He's from a small town in Texas called Linden, but it's the birthplace of people like Scott Joplin, which is crazy. And so Don grew up listening to a lot of radio, hearing a lot of different types of music, also a Patsy Cline fan, and lots of different country bluegrass music. And he was playing, he joined a band and was playing Dixieland jazz, which is not very easy to play. So he's boning up his chops there in Texas, and playing with some high school friends in a band too, because he started out just beating tables at school and stuff like that.
Right.
And used to annoy the hell out of the kids.
As most drummers do.
And they were like, why don't you just get a drum? So he went to all like the school music area, you know, the music spot in the school.
The music room.
The music room.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know those places.
You know the room with the music.
Exactly. So he fashioned his own little kind of drum kit and started making music on a makeshift drum kit. But then his mom took him to a music store, bought him a drum kit, and he said he loves her forever for that because, one, he still has it to this day, and they could barely afford that. But they believed in him so much that they bought him a drum kit. In Texas, he starts a band called, they had a different name then. I don't really remember it. But they had a song called A Simple Little Down Home Song for Rosie. It had a very long title.
Yeah.
And they kind of had a sound like Little Feat, which was interesting. Cause I
Oh, shout out to Little Feat.
Yeah. But their band didn't really go anywhere. But anyway, he saw Kenny Rogers came to Texas, and Don went up to Kenny Rogers and was like, Mr. Rogers, you know, I think you'll want to hear our
your
band.
chicken.
We sound pretty good. And Kenny's like, hey, kid, I don't do that. I'm Kenny Rogers. You don't know when to hold him. Like, you know.
don't know when to fold them.
Exactly. You should know when to walk away, when to run. But Don knew exactly when to walk up to Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers actually went and heard them play and then decided to take him under his wing. And he took him out to California, too, and started producing their band. And things didn't really go well for Shiloh. That was the band then. And they didn't really get anywhere either. So Don ended up, you know, in the circuit, just like Glenn. And then they both ended up playing for Linda Ronstadt's band. Don actually had to audition.
Yeah.
And Glenn was asked to join.
Oh, the nerve. Asking Don Henley to audition? We should also mention that both of these people also sing very well.
Yes.
Don played drums, like we mentioned. Glenn was a guitar player.
Yes.
Although he played other things, but mostly guitar.
Mostly guitar. And he was actually on Bob Seger's song called Ramblin' Man. He sounds amazing on it, on the background vocal. You can hear him really loud. He's like, Ramblin' Man. It's like really nice. Yeah. So yeah, they're in LA and they're playing for Linda and they're doing pretty well.
And I believe another member of Linda's band also became a member of the Eagles, right? Or was he not Bernie? Bernie Leadon.
Yeah.
I always forget about. This sounds mean, but I always forget about him because I never think about him when I think of the Eagles.
Yeah.
But was he? He was also with Linda, or no? Or they just knew them.
They knew each other because Bernie had played for. There's so many weird groups. He played weird group names with good sounds, like the Flying Burrito Brothers.
What's weird about that? They like burritos and they can fly.
Exactly.
I don't see what the big deal is.
Nobody's Mexican in this band, but. But they like burritos, and their sound was good. But I think Bernie said that they had changed up another member of the band, and he was very close to the original member, so he didn't really like where that was going.
Right.
# foreshadowing. And then Bernie ended up just like an artist, and we're gonna get more into the story of Glenn and Don leaving Linda Ronstadt, and they suggest Bernie as an artist to come in and play with the new band that Don and Glenn want to start together.
Right.
So yeah, they knew him, but he wasn't in Linda's band.
Was it Randy Meisner that was in Linda's band? Wasn't there a third person that was in Linda's band, or am I making that up?
I believe that she suggested both of them to Glenn and Don.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll talk about Randy. Randy Meisner, bass player with the high vocal, which the more we do podcasts, I'm realizing that having a bass player that can sing high notes is like key.
We got to get into Randy's bass.
Yeah.
I mean, he's licking us with the bass on a lot of tracks.
He's got some crazy bass lines.
Yes.
But it's the same thing. We were talking about Michael Anthony from Van Halen.
Yeah.
And obviously the bass playing is also really good, but also the high vocal is really the kicker.
Yeah.
Like that is just as valuable. Like there's lots of people that are really good bass players, but to be able to do that, I keep thinking about this. This gets deeper. Peter Cetera from Chicago is another guy.
Whoa.
With the high vocal and then the low with the bass. So it's like he's got such a range.
I'm seeing a trend. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just realizing that. Like having
nice.
the bass player with the high notes is like, that shit is key.
Seems like it's key.
That shit is really key.
Mental note for Sight After Dark.
Yeah. Any high singing bass players want to move to Brooklyn and be in our band? Okay, so now they're getting like the core group together.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were playing with Linda, but they're realizing, okay, like, we're going to start our own thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's, you know, the conflicting stories of how they came up with the name. Some say that it had to do with they were in like the desert on peyote and they saw like an eagle fly by or something and they're like eagles.
Yeah.
Others just like that. They like eagles. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like the peyote story.
I like the peyote story too.
So I'm gonna go with that.
Uh-huh.
If anybody asks, that's the official story from people who have never met any of these people. Okay, so just write that down.
Yeah. Later in life, they were saying things like, it sounds like a team. It sounds like a gang. It sounds like a group. It sounds like something you're interested in. So it's like, it's a really cool name. Like now that they've actually, been into having the name the Eagles, they can analyze it as much as they want.
You know what's funny? I never thought about that, but you just saying that, like, Eagles definitely could have been, like, a motorcycle gang. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I never really thought about it like that, because I always just knew of... I was about to say the Eagles. I always knew of Eagles.
Yeah. I feel like you can say the Eagles because I've watched a couple interviews and I've seen the Eagles come out of Glenn and Don and a lot of other people's... the other Felder's mouth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, whatever. We'll say whatever the fuck we want, all right?
That's
this is our podcast, damn it. They can say what they want on their podcast.
It's not like we're talking about talking heads. Then we'd have a problem.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
So they get together, they put out their first album.
Yeah.
Self-titled.
Yes.
Immediately coming out with the bangers.
Yeah. Take It Easy is on that.
Take It Easy. I cannot believe that Take It Easy is on their first album.
On their first album. Well, now that I still can't believe it, but it's understandable that it was co-written by Jackson Browne.
Yeah.
That's a little bit understandable because it was originally his song and he couldn't figure out the second verse. Standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Such a fine sight to see.
And Glenn was like, "Come on, man, it's a girl, my lord, in a flatbird Ford. What are you talking about? You
slow
can't
it down
find
and
lyrics."
take a look at me.
And then like Jackson's like, "How mercurial." He's like, "Women, rock and roll, and redemption all in the same line." He's like, "Oh my gosh,
this guy's got something.
He's got something."
Yeah, that's so funny. Witchy Woman is on that song as well.
That's another great one.
Great guitar work.
Yeah, somebody wrote that with Don. I want to say it's Don and Bernie that wrote that one.
I believe it was Bernie as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's just really crazy because Take It Easy is like one of their most famous songs. And I can't believe it's on their first album. It's like their sound was already so distinctive. And this is another time to point out that a big part of their sound is all of their voices coming together.
Yeah.
And the harmonies.
Yeah.
The harmonies are really what make these songs pop because, Take It Easy, I mean, obviously it's great lyrics, they're telling a story, you can really see the story. But it's like, it's an acoustic guitar, it's a pretty basic drum beat. It's nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
But when the harmonies come in, it just jumps out at you.
Yeah. It took them like not too long, but a minute to get that sound together. Because Jackson Browne was already signed with David Geffen, who had started a new record label called Asylum Records way back in the day. And the guys wanted to sign with David too. So they auditioned for him once they got Bernie and Randy, and they were like, "We're going to go to David and try to get a record deal." They got a record deal, and then David was like, "You guys aren't really gelled together. I'm going to get you together with this British producer named Glenn Johns." I believe that was his name.
Glenn? Yeah, Glenn with the Y, right?
Yeah. Glenn and Glenn weren't really friends in a way.
That rhymes.
Yeah, Glenn is saying that you got Bernie, who's like one of the best mandolin players, got this really great country bluegrass thing going on.
That out. We should have said that also. Yeah, Bernie played like not just the guitar, but also like all the other string instruments, the banjo, the mandolin, like all those instruments on those Eagles. That was him. And he definitely brought a big country influence to them. Not that he was the only one that brought a country influence to him, but he definitely had a lot of that with him.
Oh yeah, you can hear it at the end of Take It Easy when the harmonies come in. Yeah, it sounds great. So he's like, you got Bernie on this end, and then you got Glenn, who clearly wants to do rock and roll. And he's like, they got to figure it out. So they had like one moment when they're about to go on lunch break. Glenn is about to throw his hat in the air and just like forget about them because he just can't figure them out. And then they start singing the harmonies right before lunch break. And Glenn was like, that was one of the most beautiful sounds. Yeah. And that's how they brought it together on that album. But still, there was still becoming like a lot of conflict going. Like they had success off that first album.
Right.
But the Eagles... There was a little bit of conflict there because Bernie liked the bluegrass and the country, but Glenn really wanted it to be a rock band with a bit of country in it.
And that's that's something that I think is really actually super important to why they sound the way that they do, is having those conflicting influences.
Yeah.
Because, and we'll get into this more later, but, you know, we've talked about this. You've said this many times. The Eagles just sound like America. Mm-hmm. And the more that I did research for this, I understand why I think that is. But I'm going to wait a little bit to say why until we introduce some more people.
Okay. Is this because of their like birthplaces and stuff? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll keep that. Well, we've got 4 Eagles right now, and we could give them some names, right? By now they're kind of establishing.
I think we have some names for them.
We've got some names for them. So Don Henley, I feel like because of his attitude towards, you know, having a really tight band, being on the road, no drugs in the studio at all, making the music, he's gonna be Boss Eagle.
He definitely is. Well, he's the Don.
He's the Don.
He's the Don. Oh, shit. This is all coming together.
It's all a wave. Yeah. He's definitely Boss Eagle. And we decided to call...
it's a wave now.
We decided to call Glenn Face Eagle. One, because he's handsome. Kind of a heartthrob. And I don't think he would mind. He went kind of bare-chested on the cover for Desperado. He wouldn't mind us talking about how he looks.
And also... in his face, he kind of looks like an eagle, though. Does, like he has a very he has very sharp features.
Yes.
You know, he definitely has that vibe to him. And we were saying right before we went on that this band is one of the few bands where you can see their personalities in their faces. Right, exactly. You know, and you can, like, if you look at just a picture of Don Henley, you're like, that guy is the serious one.
That one is definitely the serious one.
You know, Glenn, you know, you could tell that he's very driven, but he likes to have a good time.
Yes, yeah, you could see that. Yep.
You know, you could see all that, and you could tell that Bertie is a country guy.
Yep, so we're calling him Country Eagle.
Country Eagle.
Country Eagle. And then Randy hits the high notes, so we're just going to call him Eagle Soprano.
That's
a cool one.
I like that. Eagle Soprano. Yeah, and his high notes are so good.
So good. Like one of these nights. I know that's later on, but like I was singing it. Usually I just mock the voices, but I really wanted to do the highest note, and I'm like, that is high,
dude.
That is high.
Yeah, 100%. But we'll get more into that. So, okay, so the first album, you know, it was successful. I think. Take It Easy hit like top 20, I believe. Okay. So, you know, it wasn't a bum album. At all. Right. So, but obviously, you know, they want to be growing. They want to get more successful as they go on. So they start working on their next album, which this is like, I don't know if this is controversial. I think this is probably my least favorite Eagles album.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, okay, it's called Desperado. And I'll go on a little rant here. The song Desperado is my least favorite Eagles song by far. I feel like it's just super corny for like no reason. Desperado. Yeah. But and I think it has to do with like they purposely said they wanted to go with like a cowboy theme.
They did.
Which, you know, again, they have a lot of country western influence. You know, they got some you know, the banjo, the mandolin. They got Texas. They got all these different things rolling around, but. It's not really my cup of tea necessarily. Right. Obviously, there's still good songs on it.
There are good songs on the album. I was listening to them. They got a book of, Jackson had gotten a book of gunslingers. And they were all looking in the album. And that's where they got their concept from. And they said, like, oh, you know, when we're kind of living on the road, we're kind of living the life of an outlaw. No, you're not. One, the word describes itself.
You are outside of the law.
The law is not after the Eagles. I don't think they've ever been after the Eagles.
No, I think the law is a fan.
The law is a fan. Definitely a fan of the Eagles. You drive in a car, you're driving a little over the speed limit. If you're playing the Eagles, I don't think you're getting stopped. I don't.
Well, we should test it. We should live our lives in the fast lane a little bit. But so they put that album out. You know, it still does well. I mean, they're still nowhere near the heights that they're going to reach. No, they haven't soared.
Yeah. The record execs weren't happy with that concept either. Yeah. They were like, oh, they made a cowboy album. They were like, in their face, they were like, this is great, guys. Cool, thanks. Yeah. And they were like, they turned around and were like, oh my God, they made a cowboy album.
Right. And this was, I think they were being managed by Irving Azoff at the time. Yes. He was like power agent. Like, he's represented like every fucking famous musician. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, we're gonna call him Legal Eagle.
Legal Eagle.
Because they're still with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that'll come up later. Bigger things. But so then after that, I believe, is One of These Nights, the next album?
Yeah, they're working on the next album because this Desperado album, they were really pissed. They were going into England to still work with Glenn, and Glenn wanted certain echoes on the vocals, and he wanted certain sounds. He wanted more of the country too, and after the first album, they were starting to assert themselves. They knew themselves more as songwriters and musicians and stuff, and they could go head to head with a producer. And Glenn was like, hell no. And they were like, okay, well, bye. First, they were enthralled because, Glenn had produced, like, he had worked with the Stones.
He had done some big things.
Yeah, so they were excited to go and work in the exact studio that Zeppelin had recorded in and stuff. But then after they left the pond and they came back to America to work with a new producer. They needed a new producer. And this was Bill, I can't say his name right. Simchick?
Yeah.
Bill Simchick. It's got a lot of Y's and C's and Z's and K's. But I think I'm saying Bill Simchick right. And Bill Simchick started out in the Navy working sonar. And then after when the war was done, when he's done, he came back and he was like, well, I need a job now. So he's like, well,
I can use my ears.
I can use my ears. So he started going into production, and then he was in on a Carol Kane session, I believe. And he was like, this is actually fun.
Yeah.
And then after he started boning up his chops, and he was like, I can produce better than some of the producers that are hiring me. And then he got a call from the Eagles. They had heard of him too. And they were like, well, we want you to produce the album. He let Glenn know he was doing it. Glenn was like, better you than me, mate. Because they had hated each other by now, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't end really well with the Eagles. And then, so now they're producing, third album now.
And around this time, they bring in another guitar player.
Yes. Somebody came in on a session, one of Bernie's friends.
Yeah, he came in just to do like slide guitar on a song for them,
Yes,
I believe, right?
That's it.
Yes, and this was a man by the name of Don Felder. And he's from Gainesville, Florida.
Woohoo!
The story is that he actually learned slide guitar from Duane Allman.
Really?
And then he taught a young Tom Petty how to play guitar. But Tom Petty disputes that. He said that he didn't actually teach him how to play guitar, but he did teach him a little bit of piano.
Okay.
But they definitely knew each other.
Okay.
That's confirmed.
All right.
Gainesville, it's not a big place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially music industry in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Small world.
Because he was working at a music store.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
I'm really being educated right now.
So Dom was working at a music store. I read he was only working there for like 18 months, but during that time he met Duane and Tom.
Okay.
Because again, it's Gainesville, Florida. There's not a fucking lot of people there, and the amount of people at the time that were really into rock music is not going to be huge. You're going to gravitate towards each other eventually.
True.
But Don didn't stay in Gainesville. He went a lot of places. He moved to New York. He was in a band up here. That band didn't work out. Then he moved to Boston. That didn't work out. Then he eventually made it to LA, where he eventually got into the orbit, and he was eventually asked to join the band because he is a great guitar player.
Yeah, they called him Fingers Felder. When he came in and played in that session. He said he was just thinking he was coming in to just, do a little session work, and then the next day he was called and asked. So I feel it's just appropriate to call him Eagle Fingers.
Yeah. I mean, if that you're killing it if you play just like, oh yeah, I'll do a little slide.
Yeah.
You want to be in the band full time?
Exactly. He has easily. Okay. I'm so glad we got reminded of a lot of the Eagles music and stuff like that, because Don Felder has easily become one of my favorite guitarists of all time.
He's great. He's awesome. So the album they're working on becomes One of These Nights, and this is such a great album because there's so much. First of all, the title track is amazing. Everything from the opening bass line to shout out to Randy Meisner to the guitar harmonies, which is right there. Is you can really feel Felder.
Yes, that first note. Like, he wanted you to hear that. Oh my gosh, it's so clean. And then the solo on that song too. I feel like, it's really interesting. Like, in every band, every member adds up to create the individual sound. And I feel like that's not any more obvious than in this band. Oh, yeah.
Because they have, and there's another guitarist that's going to be coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see this people, like one person coming into the band and the whole vibe of the band changing.
Yeah.
And that definitely happened when Felder came in.
Oh,
it
yeah.
definitely got more rockin'.
Definitely more
The guitar
rock.
solos got crazier. The guitar work got better, and it just made everything a little more intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then also on this album, you have songs like Lion Eyes.
Ain't no way to hide your lying eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is such a... That song makes me cry almost every time.
Yeah.
It's just such a, it's a sad song, but like the way that he tells a story, that Glenn tells a story and the way that he sings it, it's just like you really feel it and you really see it like
Isn't
every
that
time.
great? Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. And that was inspired by them just hanging out in the bar, watching like young women date men that were definitely older than them, and they were definitely only
had
interested
money.
in for money.
Yeah.
So yeah. Man, that's a good album. But as they're going, right? So Fingers is in, Eagle Fingers is in.
Yeah.
And they're really rocking, like you said. And this is starting to add a little bit more conflict because Bernie wants the country sound. And
Right.
it's like there's kind of no way you can do a really heavy country sound with somebody like Don Felder in the band.
It definitely changes things.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it a little harder.
Yeah, so, most of the band was happy. I believe that Don Henley said that he would sometimes be agreeing with Bernie on the musical direction of some songs, but most of the time be agreeing with Glenn in terms of the direction. So Bernie was starting to get pissed,
Yeah.
I mean, understandably, but we're talking about young guys who want to feed the fans and who also want to do their own thing at the same time. So we're not going to harp on like the conflicts and like, the problems and stuff like that, because it's really hard to be in a band.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And get everything out to the public and still be satisfied with yourself as musicians at the same time. So yeah, there were a lot of conflicting things. Bernie pours a beer over Glenn's head and Bernie is done. He's just pretty much done thinking he should leave the band because it's not going in the direction he wants it to go.
Luckily for them, they did have a pretty good replacement, but I'm not going to get to him yet.
Not
I want to
yet.
say it's something else. So obviously this album does really well. They're clearly climbing.
Yeah.
Soaring, as some may say.
Uh-huh.
Flapping their wings.
Uh-huh.
And around this time, their manager and the record label decides, hey, we're going to put out a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk to the band about it, though. We're just kind of going to do it.
Yeah.
And, they weren't super happy about that.
Yeah.
But it turns out that greatest hits album ended up becoming one of the biggest selling albums ever.
Ever.
So now the stage is set.
Yeah.
They've gotten huge off that greatest hits album. They were already big, but now the greatest hits album, it's giant.
Yeah.
They're getting rid of Bernie.
Yeah.
And they're replacing him with a man named Joe Walsh.
Yes.
The Rocker Eagle.
Yes, the Rocker Eagle comes in. And Joe Walsh has so many different lanes that you can call him. Rocker Eagle, Eagle Rocker, Rocker Eagle, Eagle Rocker, back
Cocaine
and forth.
Eagle.
Cocaine Eagle, the
But that's a
bald
little
eagle.
later.
Yeah, a little later. But they were, they shared a manager or a producer. I forgot. I forgot if it was Bill. Yeah. But they shared somebody. So sometimes during their concerts, they would bring Joe out in a gearbox. And they would open the gearbox and Joe would pop out and he would start playing guitar and stuff. So then, Glenn started thinking like, oh man, Bernie wants to leave. Why don't I trade Joe for Bernie?
Right.
Like, so that's where the sound kind of changes again.
Yes.
And here comes the rock.
That's another thing where you could really see on his face who he is. Like when you look at him, and especially this era, you're like, this guy loves a party and this guy loves rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
And he joined the band. And it's just literally like a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of the Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's really, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, obviously Felder, they're clearly coming, they're shifting more to the rock.
Yeah.
But it's like, all it takes is that one person, and now, and they're like pedal to the fucking metal.
Yeah.
Life in the fast lane.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So the next album is one of the most famous albums ever. With one of the most famous songs, a couple of the most famous songs ever, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Hotel California.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever heard of it. And again, I don't know if it's necessarily just Joe being in the band now, or if they were all hitting their stride all at the same time. But this album it's a work. It literally is a work of art. Like everything is so fucking good on this album.
Yeah.
And I remember the title track, Hotel California.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
There's a reason it's so legendary. I mean, it's just fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's It's everything. It's Don Felder actually writing the music, starting out with the music, and it's Don Henley's lyrics. It's just like, what is he talking about?
And his
Every
voice.
sentence and his voice. It's like you're following this story
What
word
happened
for
next?
word. Exactly. A shimmering light. And it's just like, he's starting to get tired now. We've all been there. You're on
Right.
the road, like, and then you step in someplace. It's just a great, great song. And then
Stab it with their steely knives.
they shout out to Steely Dan in the song, who they love. They said they wanted to write a song like Steely Dan. So they decided to do this
but
one.
they still can't kill the beast.
They still can't kill the beast. I mean, the song is just great. I think what makes this song great is like now you have kind of like a 2-and-2 thing. You have Glenn and Don who started it, right? The
Right.
songwriters. And then you have Joe and Don. So you
Yes.
got two dueling guitars that are holding it down here. And then you got the songwriters who are holding it here. And then you got Randy just
Yes.
right at the bottom. The bass line for Hotel California is
So good.
insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
This thing is so crazy is that, when you're talking about like, the 70s were really great for super long guitar solos to end a song. Well, specifically this song in Freebird, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But in this song, like the end of that is so good. And the bass line is so good. It's so crazy to think that it's overshadowed by how good the guitar solos are. When they
Yes.
have these dueling, they're literally, it still blows my mind. I remember hearing that. Maybe not the first. I can't remember the first time I heard this song.
Me
It's
neither.
just part of life.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
heard it in the womb, most
yeah,
likely.
but I remember like the first time I knew about music enough to really understand what was going on. Be like, wait. So they're harmonizing, but then they're also switching off solos, but then they're going back into the harmonizing. Like it's just no big deal.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And you can even hear. I can hear now when it's Joe versus when it's
Me too. Now I can hear it.
Right?
Isn't that beautiful? And
Yeah.
a shout out to Joe too, because Joe at the end said, to Don, we should do something like "Din-na-na-na-na-na-na." So I mean that's like a peak in the song as well. You
Yeah.
know, that pulls you in. So shout out to the Eagles for making such a beautiful, beautiful song. I can hear that song all the time. I'm
Every day.
never ever sick of that song.
100%. I also want to shout out. So Life in the Fast Lane.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that was a term that came from that song. Like I've looked it up. So that's like a colloquial, like people say that all the time. Oh, life in the fast lane, blah blah blah. Because that came from a Joe Walsh lick. He just do.
Yes.
And I think it was Glenn
Who was driving?
Glenn was in the car with like a drug dealer once.
Yes.
Who was going like 100 on the freeway.
Yeah.
He was just like, what the fuck, bro? And the drug dealer was like, life in the fast lane, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Glenn had that in his head and he heard Joe's riff and he put it all together.
So you're telling me that nobody was saying that before that? Like the guy?
That's apparently what I've heard is that people like tried to trace the origins of that saying and
Yeah.
there's no recorded
Interesting.
version of that saying before that song.
Wow.
Which was crazy to me because I thought it was the opposite. I thought it was something that people said and they put it
Yes.
into the song.
Yeah.
But apparently it's the opposite, and they can't find any proof of that in a written word.
I had no idea.
Before that.
No idea. I thought,
Yeah.
because I saw like when Glenn was telling the story too, and it's just like, he was like, yeah, life in the fast lane. And I thought that's just a saying that he said, and he was like,
It is
I
now.
should put it in a song. Wow. That's really cool.
I didn't do all the research myself. Like, oh, it doesn't say life in the fast lane anywhere ever in the world before that, but that is what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna believe it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with it
Fuck
too.
it.
Like, oh my gosh, how cool. And then the lyrics for that song, it just starts out, okay, he was brutally handsome. And she was terminally pretty.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. I mean, it's just too good. It's just too good.
It's too good, and Glenn is so good.
And then Don at the end, I love the country hard rockness of the end of that song too.
Yes.
Yeah, you just gotta love it. Oh man.
And now that we've brought in most of the members, I want to go back to what I was talking about earlier. I think the reason that this band sounds just like America is because all of these people are from all these different places.
All these different places
all in America.
Yes.
You got Don from Texas.
Yep.
You got, Mr. Felder from Gainesville.
Yeah.
You got Randy Meisner's from like Nebraska.
Yes.
Joe Walsh is from Kansas.
I think Bernie's from Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah.
And Joe Walsh is from like everywhere, from like Ohio, and then went to high school in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And lived in New York a little bit. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and then obviously Glenn was from Detroit.
Yeah.
So there's just so much going on here, and I think the what's the word? Convolution. The coming together, convalescence. Thank you. The convalescence of all these things is why I think this band just sounds like America. Because like you hear some bands, you're like, oh, this is for sure a New York band, or this is an LA band, and this band just sounds. I didn't think they were from LA. Like I thought they were from Texas or something.
Right.
And it's like you just feel all these different influences coming from all over the country, and I think it's really interesting. Like, in America, I feel like there's certain cities that have like a pull to them, right? Like if you're on the West Coast, LA has the big pull.
Yeah.
If you're in the Midwest, Chicago has the big pull. If you're on the East Coast, obviously New York has the big pull. So, but I feel like with all these people coming from all these different places and just all ending up in LA, it just sounds so American in a way that nobody else really does. Because it's not specifically country.
Right.
It's not specifically rock. It's not specifically R&B.
Right.
It's just all these things all at once, and you can't fake that.
Yeah.
You just can't.
It's just some honest stories, and I love that about them. I love that, that there's not necessarily a show. They're on the stage in T-shirts, jeans, like, nobody's like dressed the same and stuff like that. I think that's the other pull too to the people. It's like, this is somebody that looks like me. I swear, Glenn looks like somebody I went to school with.
Yeah,
he acts like a somebody. Yep.
He looks like a guy you would see in the bar, just drinking a beer, chilling.
His whole personality, and it's like you could like from young to old. Even when he passed away, like even in his old age, it's like this is somebody I know from like work or somebody's dad or something like that. He's just very familiar.
Yeah, 100%.
Crazy.
So around this time, there's some issues with Randy. They had a song called "Take It to the Limit."
To the limit.
So he sang lead on that song, and he didn't really like to do it, but it was a big hit.
Yes.
And they were basically like, "Hey Randy, go out and sing your fucking song." And one day he was like, "I don't want to sing the fucking song anymore."
Yeah.
So they fired him, basically.
So they basically fired him. Look, Randy. First of all, you missed an opportunity here. You missed a big marketing opportunity here.
Go on.
What you do is you're like, the voice is down a little bit. I may be able to do it tonight. I may not. So people are like, oh, is Randy going to do it?
Is it going to happen?
Is it
going
to happen?
Take it to the limit?
Randy might have to get a little bit of surgery. You just fake a story. And people are like, oh. And then all of a sudden Randy comes back and he's like, I can do it. I can do the note. So that'll given Randy enough time to get over his anxiety. Because it's like, I know a lot of Eagle fans are pissed about this, about Randy being fired. But it's just like, imagine being hired for work and the night before work you drink a lot, you smoke a lot, you hang out with the ladies and stuff like that, and you come to tell everybody at the job, and it's like, look man, I was drinking a lot last night, I'm not going to do the job today. You all right with that?
No.
It can't really happen. Glenn's like, I hate singing Take It Easy and Peaceful Easy Feeling. I'm tired of it.
It's honestly sad. I mean,
it is. But they're young. That's the other thing. You're talking about young guys who are just getting a whole bunch of fame. You can't really blame Randy for missing his family and not feeling like singing that night. But at the same time, it's an organization now. It's a job now. You have to do the job or you just don't.
Yeah, at some point, it's like, suck it up, bro. You're in one of the biggest bands. This doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Being in a band like this doesn't happen multiple times in your life.
Exactly.
It just doesn't.
And that's the thing. And then it was back then. So we're talking about, Joe describes all these guys as like alphas. You know what I'm saying? And Randy didn't like confrontation and stuff. He wasn't like that. So they didn't have like, oh, do you have anxiety? How are you feeling, sir? What's your mental health like? It was either do it or don't do it. Yeah, that's just what the day was, Right.
So, so Randy was out, and they bring in a man named Timothy B. Schmit. Who, again, great bass player, also with the high voice. Because that is what is needed.
Yeah.
That is necessary.
They knew him from a band called Poco because he replaced Randy in the band Poco. Randy was already in a band called Poco. These weird names from the late 60s and 70s. But they made good music. It's like when you hear the sound bites. So Randy gets replaced by Timothy once again. And he comes in. And we're going to call Timothy Peace Eagle.
Peaceful Eagle.
Peaceful Eagle sounds great. Yeah.
And he's another one. Again, you look at him, and he just seems like such a kind, like a nice guy.
Yep.
You know? Mm-hmm. But at this point, they're, one of, if not the biggest band in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure on them to, have a big follow-up. Mm-hmm. So it takes the longest amount of time that it's taken them to put out a record after that. It takes them 3 full years to put out the next record.
Because they're starting to get pissed at each other. Don Felder wants to sing more. Don is a really, really great guitarist and has had some great solo work after the Eagles too. But if you had to measure all the voices in the band, he's not the best voice in the band.
No.
So there's a song called Victim of Love. Don writes the music for Victim of Love. He actually wanted to sing on it, but his vocals didn't sound great on it. He practiced it for a week, and all of a sudden they had Legal take Eagle Fingers out to dinner and tell him, like, look, the band says, you don't sound too great. You should play.
Yeah, he didn't take that great.
And Boss Eagle should sing. So that's what started pissing him off. And this is what I'm talking about, being young and getting the fame. Because when you see, like, Joe Walsh explain the story, he's like, what I know is that Don and Glenn always said, this is the best thing for the Eagles.
Band.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, it's hard to understand that when you're an individual, but you have to understand that if you're in a band. So a lot of tensions are flying because of those things. People want to do this. People want to do that. Members in the band who've been there a couple of years but not founding members want to have more input, you know. So those are the problems that are starting to arise, and that causes the writing block. I feel like
So again, it takes 3 years to get the next album out, and then also I want to say it's not like, how do I want to say this? Don has a fucking great voice. It's not like, oh yeah, he's like a little better than you, he can do it. It's like, no, like, I'm sorry, like. And, Glenn has a great voice, too, but it's not nearly as good as Don's.
And Glenn purposely stopped singing as much because Don's voice started becoming the voice.
And he even said something. He's like, why would I sing this when we have Don Henley?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he knows. Because there's a certain, like a smokiness to Don's voice that the other guys just don't have. And that's not something that you can teach. That's what your voice sounds like. That's your throat.
I feel like being in a band, you have to start to let go of yourself. And,
it's about the
what's
group.
best for the band.
Yeah. You have to be about the collective and less ego.
Yeah.
But, I'll we've done so many of these podcasts now. And, we're talking about people that are mostly young. They're getting a lot of fame. They're getting a lot of money, success. And the ego starts to get bigger and bigger. Yeah. And the ego can only get so big when you're part of a group.
Yeah.
If you're a solo act, no one's really going to tell you shit.
Yeah.
But if you're in a band and this is a collaborative process, there can only be so much I.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So...
Victim of Love is a hot song, too, though. I can't imagine anybody else's voices on that. But Don.
I mean, all these songs are fucking great.
Yeah.
But, So anyway, so they put out the next album eventually called The Long Run. Which is so fucking good.
Yes.
That album is also so great.
Oh, yeah.
Even the title track. There's so many songs. First of all, let me go back a little bit. There's so many songs by Eagles that I knew just from being, I guess, an American, just by living here and just going around, that I didn't even realize were the Eagles. They're just so, just a part of American culture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember listening to The Long Run, a couple years ago. And I was like, I didn't even know this was the fucking Eagles.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about it just before we started recording, and I was like, half of my life as a little kid, I thought Joni Mitchell sang I Can't Tell You Why.
I can't tell you why.
And then I thought it was an R&B song by a random black person that didn't get a lot of fame in the 70s.
A one-hit wonder.
Yeah, I never knew until older years, past high school, that was the Eagles. Crazy.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh, shout out to Don for the solo on that.
Oh, yeah.
Too, also at the end.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much soul in that.
Oh, my God. Keep me away.
Yeah.
I think we need to shout out that Joe Rocker Eagle does have a world record for trashing hotel rooms. We don't have to put that in there somewhere.
Yeah. Shout out. Yeah. So now they're, again, the biggest band in the world. They put out a new album that's fucking awesome. Oh, and also Timothy that was his time to shine.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? That was his version of Take It to the Limit, basically. Yeah. If they lasted longer, it would have been interesting to see how he dealt with having to sing that song.
That's true.
But we didn't really get the chance to see how that would play out for obvious reasons. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So that was the last album they put out during their classic period.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happened towards the end of that album.
They start arguing more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do you want to talk about the senator, the show for the senator or whatever?
I do want to talk about the senator for the show. Okay, so Don has a lot of political affiliation and a lot of political, things that are close to his heart. It doesn't like bombs. It doesn't like, the war and things like that. So Linda Ronstadt wanted them to support a senator named Alan Cranston. And they had supported different senators before. And Don Felder was not into them doing benefit concerts and stuff. Henley says he was more interested in putting the money in his own pocket. I just think he was just a young man that just didn't give an F or didn't give a shit about politics and stuff. And that's what he says himself. So they do the benefit for the guy. And at the end of the concert, this guy must have known that Felder hated him. Because out of all the Eagles to come up to and thank, he thanks Felder.
The senator.
Yeah, the senator. Senator Cranston thanks Felder. And Felder's like, you're welcome. And as soon as the senator turns his back, Felder says, I guess. Listen, Felder, you could have just done a head nod. A quiet mouth with a head nod would have told the senator right away that you don't like him, but you're here. Like, you know what I'm saying? The I guess is kind of a move because he turned his back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not cool. But still, in my mind, it doesn't warrant a fight. But
so that is what happened.
Yes.
So Dom was pissed.
Oh yeah.
Because again, he was really into the cause.
Yeah.
And Felder's basically like, I don't give a fuck, dude.
Yeah.
And Don was not. They were like literally about gonna fight.
Yes, Don was pissed. Face Eagle had a face crack at the moment. He was pissed too.
He was very mad.
Feathers are ruffling. A lot of swooping, a lot of circling.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was basically the end of the band right there. They were just like, it's done.
There's audio of them arguing on stage, somebody's starting to kill somebody right after the concert.
The quote from Dawn was that the band will get back together when hell freezes over.
Yes. Felder smashes his cheapest guitar, hops in a limo, and heads out. I want to say something about this moment here, too. Because this is like 1980. What were y'all doing here in the music industry? You're killing Bonzo. You're getting rid of Zeppelin. You're getting rid of the Eagles. I don't know what's going on. But Beatles already done. Who knows what's going on?
It's a new decade. It's time for a change.
It's time for a change, I guess. But this is the thing here. They say that Felder doesn't get his credit, for what he's contributed to the Eagles. I feel like the credit is right there. Felder walks out and the band disbands. They can't go on without him. They don't go. Well, they do after, but you know what I'm saying?
Eventually, yeah.
The credit is right there because they could have easily been like, all right, well, fuck this guy. We can try to get somebody else, or we'll just go on without him. They could have easily have done that.
But they can't.
Right. So Don Felder and Don Felder fans, there's his credit right there.
That is a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think about that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that is really true.
Yeah, and kind of knowing how Texas people are, it's like, I feel like if Don Henley and Don Felder are annoyed with each other, they're not going to be like, oh, he's the greatest guitarist we've ever had.
Yeah.
He's just going to be like, all right, well then it's over. You know what I'm saying? And that's your credit right there. That's like a man-to-man Texas man credit.
Yeah, he's like, all right, well he'd had it, so I mean it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. They were tired by this point. Again, we got to reiterate, these are young guys. You know what I'm saying? They're the first to do a lot of things in history. Yeah. There's no book for that. The point is, did they complete the assignment? Did they make the hits? Do you love them or not?
I think they did all right.
Yeah.
I think they did pretty well. So the band breaks up, and I feel the worst for Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Because he took it really fucking hard. Because, again, from his standpoint, he comes into this band, he seemed like he really enjoyed all the guys in the band.
Yes.
It doesn't really sound like he had problems with anybody. I never really heard anybody really getting arguments with him.
He's a head down and nose clean kind of guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the band breaks up, and, he continues to do solo work, and, they all mostly do solo work. And Don does a lot of solo work, and he has huge songs by himself.
Yes.
Because, again, he has the voice.
Yeah. But there's so many songs that we just didn't know that they did solo. There's an Eagles song that I actually love. Shout out to Joe Walsh for this one because this song's called In the City.
In the city.
and I never knew that was the Eagles.
Yeah.
And that is the ending song for a movie called The Warriors, which is a Brooklyn movie about these kids trying to get back to Coney Island, which a lot of Brooklyn people would be like, that was like a play. But
well, it was.
Yeah, it's kind of corny, kind of cheesy, but at the same time,
it's fun.
When the song ended, I loved that song, and I had to wait for the movie. When I got older and watched it again as an older person, I waited for it to end to see like who sang this, and I was like, the Eagles sang this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they break up. Joe takes it really hard, and like really for like the next like 12 years, he just kind of sinks into like a downward spiral.
Yeah. Timothy B. Schmit also took it hard because he was in Poco, and Glenn was like he was making like $250 a week in Poco, and then all of a sudden he's in the Eagles, and just for like a year and a half,
and then it's done.
He's like, this was my dream, and all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah, that sucks. So they're doing all these other things. But then eventually they do get back together.
They do.
Because what was it? Was it Garth Brooks?
Travis Tritt.
Travis Tritt.
Yeah.
Okay, so Travis Tritt, big country singer, he like basically organized the whole country album of Eagles songs.
Yeah.
Right? And he did was it Take It Easy?
Yeah.
He did a video for Take It Easy, and he invited all of them to come be in the video.
Yeah.
And they showed up.
And
that was the first time they had all been there together, and whatever. 12, 14 years at that point.
Yeah. It was actually 94. So they probably were like, listen, Dan Berg's being born this year. We have got to get this band together.
We got to do it. We got to do the thing. Yeah, I know. So they met up, and that was like the first time they had seen each other in so long, and they were just kind of like, well, we don't really hate each other that much, right?
No, you just needed a nap. You needed to take a break.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it was.
So they get back together. They release a new album based on what Henley said about... He said, look, we'll get back together when Hell freezes over.
Right.
Well, we're back together, so I guess Hell just froze over.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's the name of the album. They go on a tour. It becomes like the highest selling tour, like the highest ticket prices too, because... I think their manager, I think it was Irving, he was like, well, people were upset about the $100 tickets, but it was like, they were the first band to ever charge $100 for a ticket. And they were like, well, the thing is, the Eagles fans, they're older now, and they got more money, so they're going to fucking pay it.
Now you're becoming outlaws. Now you're robbing the people out on the road. Okay?
And that's going to be kind of a recurring theme as we get on with Mr. Henley. But yeah, so they get back together. They're still not talking to Randy.
Right.
Randy's just out.
Yeah.
But they do all get together, including Randy, for their rock and roll induction, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and that's great. And it's so interesting. Even Bernie was there.
Glenn was telling people, all the fans, to just let it go, like it's none of your business, basically, which is true. Is your part is to listen to the music,
right?
Not really to get involved in like all of their stuff.
Yeah, and we're here, so enjoy it.
Yeah.
And they stayed together for a while, but obvious health problems took Glenn away.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, back in 2016, and they're not gonna keep pushing it.
Yeah, they brought Glenn's son, Deacon. Which is crazy because I've heard this name over and over again. I never made the association at all. But Deacon sang along with them. I think Don Henley's son Will came in and played a little bit guitar too. They're still kind of touring. Last stuff I read was COVID stopped their tours.
Are they real? I didn't even realize they were still.
I went down in the bottom, and it's like 2017 to present because they said they would stop the tour. They were like, when Glenn died, they were like, we don't think we're going to ever go back on the road again. But then Don once again had to eat his own words, and they went back on tour. They were out on the road up until late 2022, from what I know.
Okay,
that's crazy.
Wait, like 2020 also?
2020, no. 2020, they had to stop their tour because of COVID in the beginning of the year.
Right, not 2022.
2022, the year, as in last year.
Oh, really?
They were still on the road.
Oh, shit, I had no idea.
Crazy.
Okay, well, good for them, I guess. Yeah, with Deacon.
Yeah.
And then Timothy still.
Yeah.
Randy's still out.
Deacon has left to do his own solo work, but he comes back in and does some guest performances with them.
We should also say that they ended up dropping Felder.
Yes.
Which I don't remember why.
They fired him for something. It's just a lot of differences.
It was just another argument.
Another
or
argument. They're
yeah.
on waves. Hopefully before they all pass away, they can just like they have been doing for years and years, breaking up and making up, breaking up, making up. So hopefully they will make up before this is over. I want to say we saw Felder's guitar at the Met.
Oh yeah.
You remember in your mind, right? I don't remember.
Was it the white one? Was it the double neck?
It was that. Yeah, because I can vividly see it now. I feel like I videoed it, but I know I definitely stopped in front of it and looked at it.
And we're like, wow.
They actually did a video of him on CBS this morning, and he's actually standing in the middle of the Met, and he's playing the guitar solo for Hotel California.
That's awesome.
It's insane. That guitar is beautiful. It's actually a little bit more prettier than Jimmy's double neck. It is to me for some reason.
The white one versus the red one?
Yeah, for some reason. I think because it looks like ivory. It
does,
just,
yeah. And I think it has the gold inlays.
That is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Jimmy.
Sorry, Jimmy Page. We still love you. Yeah, so I mean that's really the most of the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, but like we said, they're one of the greatest selling bands of all time. They are, in my opinion, they are the American band.
Oh yeah.
And it's like we said before. There's just so many different places in America that come together to form this sound that you just can't replicate that. There's so many songs that are just a part of the fabric of this country. And it feels so weird to say that, but it's fucking true.
It is true. I mean, they got honored at the Kennedy Center honors, and President Obama said those exact words, like they are woven into the fabric of this country.
It's just really true. And it's like we were saying, when I was getting ready for this, doing more research, going through their albums, going through their songs, I still forgot how many songs they had that were huge and just a part of life, that you just heard these songs just in a car rolling by, just in a bar.
What about Glenn with The Heat Is On? I didn't know that. I was like, I love Beverly Hills Cop. And I was just like, what? And then You Belong to the City.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount, just the fingerprints that they had on society in America.
Totally insane. I love the Eagles. Thank goodness, out of the 3 greatest bands of all time, that we do have an American band there. You know what I mean? I mean,
gotta represent.
You gotta represent. I mean, you could have argued if our band didn't get there in the top 3, we could have been like, well, that's just you guys doing our music anyway. But it's all right. It's all right. We got the Eagles up there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, definitely one of my favorite bands of all times. And I'm going through this. It just made me more sad that Glenn Frey is not here with us. It really did. And I was just like, damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least we've got the music and his legacy, and we've got the Eagles legacy, and a lot of Eagles here still with us. So that's good.
Absolutely. So shout out to the Eagles. Absolute legends. As always, let us know if we missed anything in the pod. Let us know if we got anything right, or I hope we got something right.
Yeah.
Let us know if we got anything wrong. We try our best to make this accurate and make it fun, but there's a lot of stuff to learn.
Yeah. And who's your favorite Eagle?
It's got to be Joe.
Yeah.
It's got to be Joe. Just because I don't know if you guys listening know this, I play a little bit of guitar, and obviously Felder's great. But when I hear Joe playing guitar, I'm like, that guitar is him. Yeah. He is the guitar. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My favorite is Glenn, because he's like a learner. When he was talking about songwriting and how he didn't know how to write a song, and he would listen to Jackson Browne practice up for like 20 times, he'd play the same song, and then he would stop. He'd come back, and then he learned that, okay, well, thought goes into it, and you have to have patience and stuff like that. And I just really appreciate a lot of the wise words that I have heard Glenn Frey say in the interviews. So he's become my favorite Eagle.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
Picking one of them.
Exactly. It's true.
But yeah, thanks again for being here, y'all. If you like the podcast, support us at patreon.com/musicmaniacs so we can keep doing this and keep making more episodes for you guys. Yeah. And I think that's it. Is there anything else we got to say?
I don't have anything else I have to say. I hope I don't have anything else I have to say. I'd be so pissed because I really wanted to do this one. It's barbecue time in America.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So thanks again for being here. We're Side After Dark, and we'll see you next time.